Today's lesson teaches us to choose thanksgiving over complaining and grumbling. After their long enslavement, as they followed the cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night, the children of Israel left Egypt and traveled from place to place, and the book of Numbers chronicles the story of the 40 years during which the children of Israel wandered in the desert before entering the promised land. After 2 years camped in the Sinai desert, God lifted the cloud, and the Israelites left the wilderness of Sinai. They followed the cloud until it rested in the wilderness of Paran. Today's text finds the Israelites only 3 days into their journey, mumbling and complaining about the hardships they have to endure while traveling in the desert. And that brings us to our key verse for today, which reads, "The rabble with them began to crave other food, and again the Israelites started wailing and said, 'If only we had meat to eat.' We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost, also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna." Numbers chapter 11, verses 4 through 6. People complain when they are uncomfortable, and nothing makes people more uncomfortable than not having the basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter met. Up to this point in their journey, God had been sufficient to meet the needs of His chosen people. Now, however, and for the first time, the people complained that God was insufficient to meet their needs. So because they were uncomfortable, instead of glorifying God, they grumbled. In response to the complaints of the multitude, God became very angry. His anger was displayed by fire that burned only at the outer edges of the encampment. This display of holy anger was sufficient. The people got the message and sought out Moses, whom they asked to intercede with God on their behalf. Perhaps a little discomfort was better than death. God listened to what Moses had to say and stayed his anger. The fires were quenched, which means to sink down to subside, and the people were saved. As a result, the place was named Taberah, in remembrance of God's fiery response to ingratitude. For a year, God had been providing a miraculous substance for food for the multitude, but now they were tired of it. They referred to their souls. In this context, soul refers to life or oneself, their very lives as dried away. Day after day, God had provided nothing but the same dull substance to eat. The children of Israel didn't even know what the substance was. They only knew they were sick of it. There's something about human nature that craves variety. And so their ingratitude angered God once more, and this time angered Moses as well. A crisis had arisen almost as quickly as the previous circumstances of ingratitude, and the tension was higher than before. In his anger, Moses prayed. He wanted to know what he had done that would cause God to put the burden of millions of ungrateful, complaining people on him. Moses had learned to trust God to be sufficient to meet every need, but the people had gotten on his nerves, and he had grown tired of them. Moses' complaint was not one of ingratitude. His complaint was one of frustration. He had been used to the miraculous to deliver them across the Red Sea, but now he was frustrated with the people, and there was no thought of miracles. The burden of their concerns made him focus more on venting his frustration than seeking God's tremendous ability to provide. So here's our lesson. Ours is a society of complainers with very little effort. Just about everyone can find something to complain about every day. Yet we have an opportunity to adopt a positive attitude. While frustrating things are frustrating, our frustration is not final. We can also pray for change. Let's begin to pray that grumbling and complaining among your family, your church, your community, your neighborhood, and your workplace be replaced with words of encouragement and thanksgiving. The reality is that God is ever faithful. Do we find ourselves complaining about situations instead of focusing on God? Do we need to recommit to following God faithfully? Let's ask God to forgive our complaining and negativity and make a decision to focus on God, stop complaining, and begin to pray to God, who is able to help us answer our cries for help according to God's plan for your life. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to iLights. Heavenly Father, fill our hearts with what we truly desire, for who we truly seek is you.